banjo. Know all there is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, it's Real Spoilers, episode 655. 666.
56.
656.
Leave it all in.
He'll fix it all in post.
No, we won't.
Not at all.
We don't pay him enough.
Well, that's for sure. I heard you get the wrong one last time when I was listening to the last episode.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's okay. Maybe I'm wrong. But then I looked at the folder here, and it was really one behind. So I was like, oh, I better say something. Oops, sorry for not telling you earlier.
Anyway, Shang-Chi and the Legends of Onion Rings.
Nope.
No?
Nope. The 10 rings.
The 10 rings.
Yes.
Ooh, 10 onion rings.
We
will
that
be
does
full.
That does sound pretty good.
Actually, onion rings are disgusting.
You're crazy.
They're like,
They're
it's,
great.
it's a vegetable. You can fry it all you want. It's still a vegetable. I'm not eating it.
No, it's deep fried batter
Vegetable.
with a tiny
With
sliver of something that you
vegetable.
can't even taste inside
that
of it.
may or may not be a
I hate
vegetable.
when people tell you can't taste it. Then why is it in there? Now I'm not going to eat it just because you're wasting my time. Don't put it in there if I can't taste
You know,
it.
half the
love it.
time
I
you
do
bite
love it.
into it and it falls out or something.
Oh, yeah.
You're
Yeah,
just
you
eating
eat the whole
batter.
onion.
If I
Yeah.
can't taste it, I shouldn't have to pay for it. Like that's just
That's your
fairness.
business model.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go around the table and everyone can introduce themselves.
This is Joe.
This is Kevin.
And this is Tom. And joining us back again from JumpCut Online, it's Wen Lee. Hey, Wen, how's it going?
I am doing okay. Thank you for asking. How are you three today?
We are alive and early.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
Well, we're recording on a different day. We
Yeah,
don't
that's my fault.
Yeah, Joe's being the problem. And
I'm
so,
leaving town.
He's on the
okay.
lam.
Yeah, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Joe made me go to the theater till 1 a.m. yesterday.
Me too.
Oh, you went to a late
I
one?
went to a late one, yeah.
Oh, yeah, but you're a night guy,
Also
though.
true. I work at night, so I was like, yeah, man, this
I'm
is
up
just
at
normal
6 a.m.
time.
with baby, and then I was at the theater till 1 a.m., so I'm like,
Well, the
tired.
dedication. I have to applaud you for that. So.
Oh, thank you.
Don't applaud me. I went to the 7 o'clock showing like
Yeah,
a
I don't
regular
blame you.
human being.
Yeah,
so,
no, that
okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but anyway, before we get into the movie proper, shameless plugs, don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find a podcast, you can find us while you're there. Be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. Maybe leave a review. That's always helpful. And you can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/real spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. No League of Show Sharers this week because the episode's only been up for like 45 minutes, and so I would end up leaving a bunch of people out. So next week it'll be extra long, but we appreciate all your effort, and you'll get your plug next week.
Indeed.
And our Patreon, patreon.com/real spoilers, where for $5 a month you get all sorts of bonus content, and you help us out, and we like you extra. So there's all of that. Let's jump right in. I think that's a land speed record.
That's pretty
for us.
good.
3 minutes. We're talking about the
that's
movie.
not bad.
I'm too tired to make any tangents.
So this character has been one of my top 5 favorite characters in Marvel Comics for a very long time. So anytime like the Guardians movie or Spider-Man, like those are kind of the Captain America, they figured that out pretty quick. But when they start going into the bench, if you will, of Marvel characters,
Right.
I get a little worried. Right? Like when they announced
But
Guardians.
why?
Well, I mean like
Okay, for Guardians,
Yeah,
I
and
get
Ant-Man.
it, right?
Like-
because like that was the first time they really were kind of like, is this a reach? What are we doing?
where are you going?
But like now, I don't get worried at all. They've been so good about so much of this stuff. Like their worst entry is better than 90% of the action movies we sit.
You're not wrong.
And so
They've
like
earned it at this point.
Yeah,
you got to trust Feige. Even if an idea seems weird, it's like,
Yeah.
well, wait and see. Because
I do like. What I guess when I say when I'm worried is like, this is one of my like Captain Britain, Shang-Chi, and Nova. Right, like those are like 3 of my top favorite characters from Marvel. So my expectations are stupid high because I'm an idiot comic book nerd, and I expect
Are they stupid high or are they just stupid?
They're pretty stupid high.
He's sober.
Yeah, I am sober. That's true. So just high. I just
See, that's all you got left.
Yeah,
That's all you got left.
You're right. I guess we solved that one.
but I gotta tell you, this smashed it. Like, I loved this movie so much. I don't even like really have the words to describe how much I was into this flick. I would put it on the visually. I would put it on the level of Black Panther, with world building and having to do all that stuff and having a whole new, like, not barely based in like a real city. Like, it's based in San Francisco for a cup of coffee,
right?
And then it's not anymore. But yeah, I think this was, it's definitely steeped in the MCU, but you don't really need to know anything else about the MCU to go into this. Like, it holds its own.
I mean, the Mandarin stuff, I think if you've not seen the other movies, you would just be like, who is this guy? Like, I think that would be very out of place if you didn't.
So, Crystal, my wife, who was with me at the movie last night, if she saw Iron Man 3, she had no recollection of it. And so she didn't get that stuff. And I had to explain it to her, but she loved it.
Yeah.
She
and
loved
I
all
don't
the
mean you
Mandarin
wouldn't
stuff.
like it or anything. I just meant, though, but like, that's the only thing where you might be like, even though they're trying to run through it, you'd be like, what the hell did he do? He was an actor? Like, that would, I think, go right over your head. But other than that, the whole movie is pretty standalone. Like, I don't think you need to know.
No, not at all.
I mean, at the end, if you've never seen anything, you might be like, who are those holograms? But
Right.
Well, and it's not like the callback they're making is to like a tertiary character from Dark World, right? Like,
right.
He's an Iron Man. He's the main plot point of Iron Man 3. So like, that's like, I don't think that's like necessarily a deep cut that's going to stump a lot of people.
No, and I think Iron Man 3 made like $1 billion.
Yeah.
So
no, I mean, for the people that hadn't seen it, though, we're just talking about the non-MCU people. Like, you could go into this movie not seeing anything,
I
and
think
it
at
works.
this point, you can honestly say that
are there non-MCU people?
Yeah, like who, and there
that
are
lady that Heather Sachs, her friend from work.
Oh,
was.
yeah, right.
But if there are non-MCU people, are they going to this movie? Or any of them? You know what I mean? Like they're it's
it's big. It's a big, but that's a good
Yeah, I mean, all valid points across the table there, gentlemen. But well, this seems like a good starting point for someone who has never had an encounter with the MCU before. But by this point, it's also rather impossible. But at the same time, if there is such a scenario, then this is kind of like a good jumping off point, and you can work your way back afterwards. But then you don't have to be like follow the strict rules of a series or a franchise where before you watch this you have to go and really watch part 1 or part 0 of of the whole story or anything like that. And regarding the callbacks, that's there's kind of like the callbacks in here are minor. They're almost negligible, because the biggest one that I had while watching the film is Shang-Chi is in San Francisco, where basically he could be Ant-Man's neighbor for all I know, but then we absolutely do not see the little guy in here.
Or maybe we do, and he's so
or
little.
maybe we do, but then he's just too tiny to see.
I wonder if in the next Ant-Man, if they would
Let
have
the conspiracies roll.
That would be funny.
That would be really good.
And
though,
it's
if
the
you
kind
see
of thing they would
background.
do.
Yeah, you would see the exact same scene from Ant-Man's perspective and see like Shang-Chi just
on the bus.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah,
right.
Totally. That's what they would do. But to all your points, I mean, I think it's rare at this point to not have seen the MCU. You're definitely in the minority at that point. But also, I bet there are people that are maybe martial arts fans or are going to show up to this movie for the Asian representation.
I was going to say, like, the theater I was at there were lots of Asian people in that theater. And so, arguing against my own point, like, there might have been a lot of first timers that hadn't bought, and I saw like older Asian people, like whole families, or like Asian people that look like they were maybe in their 60s
Yeah.
that I don't think are probably running out opening night for a lot of Marvel movies.
Yeah.
And especially when you see that many of that community in one grouping. It wasn't like, oh, there's an Asian guy here. It was like, I'd say maybe 40% of the crowd at my particular showing.
So, I mean, this could be a really good entry point for people that are fans of Asian cinema, but have never gotten into the MCU. And after seeing this and the quality of storytelling and the special effects and choreography and all that, this may open them up and get more fans. So while they're not a huge majority of people that haven't seen any of these movies, this is probably a really good entry point because, like you guys said, it's easy to get into without a whole lot of backstory, and it's intriguing enough to be like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff at play here, and you may want to go back and see who is this Ben Kingsley guy? He was doing what? And then you might want to check out the Iron Man 3.
movies. And it's better than Iron Man 2.
I love Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 3 is great.
I love Iron Man 3.
agree. I totally agree.
I think also like it's also fascinating because it's exactly what comic books do, right?
Yes.
Like comic books will say, hey, there's a good chance that this guy, if he reads Spider-Man, also reads Fantastic Four. So we're going to acknowledge that those events happened, and that's what makes comic books fun. Is when they do that, of like, it is one big world and they do all know each other, and they all hang out in the break room, and and so
he is a friend from work,
and so when the movies do that, and they're really good about doing it in a way that feels organic and doesn't feel shoehorned in.
That's, I think when we get to like the present day stuff, you almost have to reference the snap. Like you can't not be like,
in every movie they
have to,
many times,
right? Like it has to be acknowledged, and we're going to see it. We talked about it before we started recording. Is that I tried to avoid the trailers for the Eternals, and the question in that one is like, hey, where were you guys when this giant thing happened?
And it's great that they acknowledge it in like subtle ways. Like it's a line of dialogue. It'll inform someone's, personality or rationale or some sort of life choice in a small way, like in the same way that like 9/11 does, right? Like if you see a character in just a regular rom-com, let's say, go to the airport, they're gonna go through screening. You're not gonna get that scene anymore where the loved one is waiting outside the gate, because of 9/11.
Sure.
So it's like that's a horrible event that has real world ramifications, even on a lighthearted film, and so would the snap, right?
Yeah,
like that
absolutely.
would be an incredibly traumatic event for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm going to preface this by saying this is not necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like this is the least Marvel feeling Marvel movie.
You are not wrong,
right? Because this feels like a wuxia movie, like we talked about with Mulan. These movies, like probably the best known here in America is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah,
but this movie feels like one of those movies that happens to be set in the Marvel universe, not a Marvel movie incorporating wuxia filmmaking. Right?
I think it is an interesting mix of wuxia and like Asian action movies, like because there are action beats in this film that are dope.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I could totally see that too. So yeah, I mean, when I know that you're more of an expert than us, at least in those films. I mean, because we've talked about it before. So can you tell me a little bit about the influence of those films on this one and kind of how you interpreted that?
Well, first and foremost, it's very kind of you to, regard me as an expert in this field. I'm very humbled. Well, it is. It definitely, tries to, attempts to distinguish itself from the formula, even though ultimately, it will be beholden by it. But the wuxia references, Hong Kong action films, come on, Tony Leung Chiu-Wai, he's right there. So it does attempt to do something different. It does try to, distinguish itself, set itself apart from, other superheroes. But, like you all said, there's this overwhelming sensation that, while watching the film, I really feel like Shang-Chi is not so much a superhero, but I'm just watching a man who can do heroic stuff. There's a difference in that.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Totally.
And not to mention, like, one of the biggest surprises of the film for me was just that how, like 20% of it, or actually like right from the get-go of it, it's not in it. There's narration, there's an origin story of not an origin story, I'm sorry, but a prologue of a character that it's not recited in English.
Yeah.
It's totally in Mandarin. So it was like, what am I watching? This is interesting.
Well, we've kind of talked
Why
about
do
that.
I feel closer to this more than a lot of the stuff that came before? And
That's
there's
cool.
that.
We've kind of we talked about that since the beginning of the MCU. Is we've said it before. You want to toss a fast talking smartass? All right, we'll get the guy from Made, and we'll get Jon Favreau. We want the World War II one. We'll get So they've moneyballed all of these movies. You get the heist movie, you get the World War II movie, you get the so
teen comedy,
you
get the John Hughes comedy,
John Hughes
you get
guy,
the faux
right?
Shakespeare,
you get all that.
Yeah,
And so it's interesting that they're like, we're how many movies into this
23 or something.
And they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they
still haven't been like, now this is an MCU movie.
Right.
Because it's made up of so many other types of things that
as are comic books, right?
Yes,
and
exactly.
That's been my argument about comic books for years when people were dismissive of them, which is like even if you never leave the superhero genre, which is 85% of all comic books, right? But like the good ones, the ones that that rise to the top, like they tell all sorts of different stories. So sometimes Batman's just an action movie with him kicking ass, but sometimes they're really good detective stories.
It's a horror story.
I mean, that's why it
It's
was called Detective Comics.
Yeah, right.
But other times, it might be a horror story, or it might be a thriller. Like you can tell lots of different stories within this genre of or genre isn't even really right, I don't think, but delivery system of superheroes, and Marvel figured that out
with their movies, yeah.
And that's when their movies really, I think, became next level.
Yeah.
I thought it was neat how the tone of this was different, and again, not a bad thing at all. It felt like it was its own thing, which I really respected and appreciated. And the action that we saw in this, we've seen good action in other movies, especially like Winter Soldier and those Captain America.
I think
movies,
Winter
Avengers.
Soldier's kind of like the
Black
pinnacle.
Panther.
That's true. Black
was
Panther
great
was
action.
Great, yeah.
But this action we haven't seen, other than some failed TV show attempts. We haven't seen the martial arts action at the forefront. Like seeing a whole movie where the action is like one of those Hong Kong action films or the wuxia stuff. I mean, the stuff between like the flashbacks about the father and the mother, how they met and how they do that dance.
My God.
Amazing.
Was
it's amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I thought the artistry behind that, and doing that in a big blockbuster Marvel movie, to have two people like fight dancing and I just can't believe we're here. And I thought that was some of the best stuff in the movie, and they pulled it off. I loved it. And I just thought how American mainstream that was.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's so cool we're getting
what
it.
I love about that is you see that in two different versions, right? Like it's in the beginning with the mom and the dad, it's a love story, right? It's them falling in love. But when you get to that exact same scene at the end of the movie with Shang and his father, it's not a love story. Like it's a badass, hard-hitting fight. And I think the differences between it's the same stuff. It's basically, like Shang learns how to fight like his mom as a way to defeat his dad. So it's the same movements, but it's felt completely differently in that moment. I think that's a testament to filmmaker to actually use both, to see it two different ways. And I do real quick, I do want to give a shout out. I know that I try to give credit where credit is due to creators. Shang-Chi was created in 1972 by Steve Englehart and Jim Starlin. Marvel Comics Preview, I think. And he was the master of kung fu because Bruce Lee was a thing. And
because that's what everybody they went through this period in the early 70s where they would just like, that's popular and outside of comic books, let's steal it.
Yes.
And so like you get like, let's get a Black Panther or a Luke Cage because of Black Power and Black exploitation movies, and you get like, Dirty Harry's popular, well here's the Punisher,
right?
And kung fu movies are popular, here's Shang-Chi. Like, it's
and his original look, he's got like the 70s feathered hair with like a red band, a red headband, and he's wearing like, red pants. So like this character's been around since the 70s, and he's never really he had the Master of Kung Fu, like that was his book for a long time. And then he kind of disappeared for a while, and he would just pop back up as to like, hey, can we keep the rights to this character?
Right. I was like, solely to keep the rights, I'm sure. Like, yeah.
So like when they announced this, I have gone the Marvel previews. Oh man, I wish I could remember whatever like has been on my list for a long time to get my hands on.
You ain't gonna get it now.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Like that is so far gone at this point. Number 15 is his first appearance. But yeah, like I looked online, I don't know, like a month ago, and I was like,
what's it going for now?
A lot. Like I saw like, a graded one was at like 25,000.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta start buying these up when they announce them.
You gotta buy it
before they announce them.
Well, yeah, but not the day before the movie comes out.
Well, no,
you gotta
but like
do it.
it's like on eBay, right? Like you can save searches, and it would pop up every once in a while. And I was like, nah, that's a little too high. I'll wait.
Yeah.
That's a little too high. Now I'm gonna have to
right.
mortgage my house to get a copy of this thing. But yeah, so this is an origin story, and we've talked about it before so many times where I don't need to see Spider-Man's origin.
Right.
I don't need to see the clutching of the pearls and the gunshot.
Right.
I don't need that. But you do kind of need that here.
You do.
Big time.
I didn't mind the origin story because I didn't know it. Like, honestly, like I don't, until they announced this movie, I don't know that I've ever heard of this character.
Really?
I feel like when I see people post like the covers, I feel like I've seen the covers back when they were probably in quarter bins.
For sure.
And it was just kind of like, to me, it looked.
It's very 70s.
It's very 70s.
Yeah.
It felt very like cash grab of the moment, and and like it didn't even stick in my head,
But to me, the interesting thing is for a quote unquote origin story, it didn't feel like your typical origin story. So like,
no,
I
don't think so.
It didn't play out like the way that it's like, oh, we got to cram all this exposition in.
But they paced that out, right? Like they kept telling you bits and pieces of the story throughout, instead of getting one big old information dump for half an hour.
Well, because typically, I think what's going on is like they know they're telling you an origin story you've heard before, so they're racing through it.
Sure.
Or they're telling you an origin story that maybe you haven't heard before, but most of these comic book origin stories aren't radically different.
No.
Right.
And so so they're still racing through it. Where this was a different story, so they could kind of slow it down and take a beat and reveal it to you in dribs and drabs, which sounds bad. I don't mean it sounds derogatory.
No, but they're planting seeds. They're planting it, and you're reveling little parts along the way. So, I mean, like, let's start at the beginning.
If you did this with Superman, real quick, if you did this with Superman, everybody would be like, we get it, Krypton.
Planet blows up, boom, baby comes to Earth.
We know.
We got it.
We don't need this.
That
Moving
Krypton
on.
sequence was great in Man of Steel, though. I
don't disagree.
That was really great.
But again, we know what's coming
because we've never seen it really play out. Like, it happens, but like the way they show this battle going on.
You see,
cool.
that was Zack Snyder being like, how much CGI can I get into this movie?
But
I agree. I don't disagree.
With Tony Long in the like they set it up. This felt like Lord of the Rings, right? When they're talking about the One Ring, and I thought it was really cool the way they did that with what is the main character's name? The Tony Long
Wen Wu.
So technically, he's the man. So, okay, in the comic books, his name is Fu Manchu,
right?
And like
this character,
right? I know, and I'm sorry, like, but that is his name in the comics,
and that is causing problems with it getting released in China right now because they're like, basically, are you kidding me?
Right?
And they're like, but that's not what we're doing.
That's not his name.
Changed
here.
the name, and like that's not.
But it's not the same character.
It is.
But they've changed it. Like that, they don't own the rights to Fu Manchu. Apparently, like this is a character that they replaced in the comics even long ago to take the place. Like Shang-Chi's dad is this character. He used to be the other one, so it's really not the same one. This is the replacement that they've done.
Well, in this one, he is the real Mandarin. Let's put it that way. So the character that we see in Iron Man 3, the Ben Kingsley kind of actor character, plus who was that? Guy Pearce. Right? That was Guy Pearce in 3, who says that he's was the real Mandarin. Turns out...
Killian?
Yes, thank you, yes. Who says he's the Mandarin. It turns out we knew, it was the bait and switch in Iron Man 3 that got hammered because people didn't like it. So in this one, they're like, all right, fine. You want the Mandarin, we'll give you this is the real guy. And in the comics, he's an Iron Man villain, technically. but he's got 10 rings, and like the 10 rings are basically rings on his fingers that all have different powers, kind of like infinity stones.
Yeah, it's interesting how in this one they went with these bracelets of the rings, and they're all
because the rings are basically infinity stones. They do the same thing. So they're like, how can we do this? So they did. They gave him like 5 rings for each arm, and they're basically, we get an idea of what they are by the time we get to the end, but they're just like these powerful rings.
But in the movie, they instead of each ring having different power, like an infinity gem, they all kind of harness the same thing. But it's cool how they use them, because we see him send them into battle, and he can throw them at people. They can create force fields, and so all 10 of them, he controls them and can send them to do whatever, and they work together or separately.
Yeah,
it's really neat how they play out. It kind of gives unlimited possibilities, because he can shoot them out and they can form things and do whatever, almost like a Green Lantern ring.
Almost,
really with generating things.
Now that you've said that, it's just like Marvel's like, hey, you know your garbage movies? We're just gonna fix them. We'll fix them. Wait until they get to Nova, which is basically the Green Lantern.
But that's in comics. I mean, every Marvel character has a DC counterpart, and vice versa.
For the
like
most
they all
part,
did it throughout time. With
so this
Deadpool.
means if you want to defeat the 10 rings, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Done.
Right.
He just
Oh my goodness.
not even a contest. Not even a contest.
All they had to do was send a little spiky animal or whatever after the main guy. If it touches him, the rings drop.
It would be like 3 minutes long.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just.
And then it needs to be voiced by Ben. What's his name?
Ben Schwartz.
Ben Schwartz. Yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog verse.
When they were showing the opening scene, what my wife referred to as the love fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just like, I was leaned over and I was like, he's like, I got an 11th ring.
And
it's just as powerful.
If there's one detail that I'd like to add about the rings, and apparently it's really neat as well. It's just that it's obviously it does not seem like your normal powerful artifact / weapon kind of deal. In terms of aesthetics, but also I really like how those the rings don't really show their ultimate allegiance to whomever is in possession of it. Like the ring seems to be very neutral.
Yeah,
like as long as you can like grab them, they will bow to your whims.
It's a weapon. Yeah, it's like if you dropped a gun and picked it up, now you have the gun.
Right.
And, I agree. I like that they don't have this other plot device attached to it.
It's not like a Green Lantern ring where it has to choose you, and you're the only one that can work the ring.
There we go.
Like,
or Thor's hammer, or Excalibur, or
and,
it's not one of those. If you're worthy, it's literally like if this gets into the wrong hands, right? You can use them for good, you can use them for bad, and we see that.
Exactly. There we go. Yeah. There we go. Perfect. That's how I interpret it as well. It really brings home the aspect of, right, now you got these artifacts, how are you going to use it? Mm-hmm. So that's why it's also because of that aspect, it really helps the humanity of the narrative to come through as well.
Right.
Which is what I like, because I like to know the man behind the marvels rather than the marvels that this man can do.
Well,
I agree.
You see this with the same character. I mean, we see 2 different characters wielding the rings in this movie, but even with this character Wen Wu, so we see him through thousands of years, and they also tell us that the rings grant you immortality. So we see him like crumpling these dynasties and being a part of the
Does he call
Napoleon.
himself Genghis Khan at one point?
Well,
he say that he
says he goes by many names,
Khan?
and so I think that they have to be hinting at all these historical moments that he is actually behind. Like you see the Napoleonic Wars.
Well, you see the 10 rings, like the tattoo everywhere, and you see him like I've influenced all of these different world
which
events.
Is really neat. I like it when they rewrite real historical events with these fictional characters, and
you could get Chris Evans to come back as World War II Cap.
But it is really cool when they do this, how it's like, wow, these are real events, but oh my gosh, behind the scenes was this guy.
Yeah.
So he says I've gone by lots of names. So his actual name is Wen Wu, but the Mandarin or whatever else he's hinting at in history, he's been known. So you see him in these rings, and he's been using them for power, right? So it's like the rings grant him power, and he just wants more and more power and more control. until he meets the love of his life.
He finds like this secret village that has all this power, and in trying to get to that village, he stumbles upon the love of his life, who she was like the protector of the maze. There's like a maze in these enchanted woods that won't allow
forest.
Forest. That keeps the people out, and she is like in charge of keeping people out, and they have like this back and forth, like we talked about, like this love fight is basically what it is.
It's beautiful. It's a dance.
Right?
So
it really is a
when
dance.
When
there's
you look
no other way
at
to describe it.
The choreography of a lot of these wuxia films is so beautiful and eloquent in the way that it's not just throwing punches. They do these things with the elements and flying through the air, and it is so amazing looking. And it's this beautiful picture of yin and yang,
bright colors.
These two, but the more so the balance, right? So he's using power for evil, and she's using power for good, and the two of them are this perfect balance in this world, the good and the evil. And he puts away his powers for bad, and she puts away her power because it's not necessary anymore with his power out of the world.
Right.
And so I love the way that they represent this balance between the two of them, and I think they captured it so wonderfully. I wanted to see more of that. Like, I'm glad we got multiple of those type of scenes, because we don't see a lot of that here in America, and I love that now it's on the level again, like I said earlier, of MCU. Like, you've got one of the biggest stages there is for movies right now, and people are going to be introduced to this new art form, and I'm sure they're going to want to be, a lot of people will seek out more inspirations.
And there's a lot of it. There's a lot out there for you to engage with.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
That entire sequence took my breath away, like literally. And it's just, super awesome callbacks to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and obviously House of Flying Daggers. And I did manage to, I was fortunate enough to chat with Andy Lay, one of the stunt people behind, in the action team of Shang-Chi, and who also played Death Dealer in the film.
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
Death Dealer being Wen Wu's right-hand henchman and Shang-Chi's trainer. And it's he did touch on the fact that all of the moves in the all the martial arts moves in the film have meaning behind them. So, and that is true, because when you watch martial arts or wuxia, especially wuxia films, really, a whole lot of communication are done through, fisticuffs. But then, those fisticuffs are like dancing. Right. Or some other form than like a straight up bar brawl, if you know what I mean.
It's so elegant, it's right? Like the way that they move their arms and their bodies, they do speak through it. It's so different than just punching, like you said. And I love again the balance between like him with his clenched fists and her with her open hands, right?
Yeah.
It's such a neat, yin and yang again there, and we see that later on in the film when Shang-Chi is learning that balance,
changes his
style.
Stance. Yeah. So we get that, and then of course he is smitten with her because she takes him out, knocks him down, and throws him in the water, kind of to embarrass him, but also kind of playfully, like, gotcha.
He likes it a little rough.
It likes a little rough. Yeah, I don't blame him.
Yeah. Ta Lao is the village that she's protecting.
Oh, Ta Lao, yeah. Which is fun. Like, Iron Fist is another character that, again, I love me some Iron Fist. So when that show came out, I was like, oh, you all right. But, like,
that one?
Yeah, man, it's so bad. That show's so bad.
I'm sorry.
Isn't there something in this that they also touched upon in Iron Fist? I heard someone talking.
I don't think so.
They mentioned there's just something.
There's Kunlun, which is the hidden village where Danny Rand like becomes Iron Fist.
Gotcha. There's some kind of
well, that one car was called Razor Fist.
Yeah, was there a Razor Fist in?
I don't know. I didn't watch it.
Razor Fist is a villain in the comics, but I don't remember like where he is.
Yeah, I figured that car they get in that it's got Razor Fist had to be a reference to something.
So the big guy with the blade is a villain called Razor Fist. Like that's
that's his.
Oh,
that's
it's
his
his car?
yes.
Oh,
Yes, yes,
okay.
yes.
I thought they had named it like a monster truck.
No.
Gosh,
Like the
that's
big
really-
the big guy is raised.
He just
that's
wears his logo on the outside of his
Yes.
car.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, but now by saying it, it makes sense why there was a BMW on the poster, because at first when that came out, everybody was so confused, like, what is this BMW doing here? Now it's just like, you get it.
Yeah,
You
so
get
then
it.
we flash forward to present day, and we see Shang-Chi, who it's a pretty great sequence where you think he's getting up and he's getting ready and he's dressed to the nines.
You think he's the badass
He's
guy,
but he's not. He's the valet
parking the cars.
with
Well, we
Aquafina.
should probably mention that the dad hangs up the rings until his wife
That's
is
true, yes.
killed by a rival crime syndicate or whatever.
Yeah,
and-
so because the dad's past comes back to get him,
Yeah.
but he has hung up. He put the rings up, and the mom left the village. So now they're just living this life with Shang, and we find out his sister.
Full of Dance Dance Revolution,
Yes,
and
right.
Dynasty
I thought it was great.
Warriors,
Like,
and all sorts of great
yeah,
stuff.
that was fun.
I
And-
thought it was interesting that he uses martial arts, because when he's valet, I thought there'd be more parkour.
Nope.
Oh.
Nope, there's no parkour. Parkour.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's this whole scene where he's not living up to his potential, but he's fine with it, right? Like
They are enjoying their lives.
enjoying their lives.
Nothing
right?
wrong with
he
that.
and Aquafina, who plays Katie.
Katie.
She almost steals the movie. Like, almost.
She was really good,
She's-
and she achieved something that I feel like few performers can, which is she dropped her shtick and was still engaging.
yes.
Yeah, I do feel like she was less Aquafina-y in this
Yeah.
movie, right? It's like she had toned.
She had moments of
She
it.
kind of toned that character down,
Yeah.
but still was fun and had the energy like that you expect, but just not ramped up as
and,
much. It was
and dropped the black scent.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I think that she does a really good job in this with being entertaining, but not doing the character that she's known
Being
for. Like she
being
has.
the comedy relief.
Yeah.
Like that's who she is in this. But she's also able to give Shang-Chi those emotional beats, right? Because they have been friends for so long, and he did lie to her.
Yeah.
So like she's able to do that with the character, so which I think is great. So yeah, they're living their life, and of course, Katie's mom is disappointed because she is very smart and could be very successful, but she's just living. She has a hard time committing to anything, so she just parks cars with her buddy, and that's kind of. And I do like that even the family's like, when are you going to marry her? And he was just like, no.
Yeah, we're
We're just friends. So like, there are moments of a romantic tension. I think when they get to like the hug, like there's a hug later in the movie that I think
Really, I never really read it that way.
it holds a little long, but it's also two best friends
Right.
after this massive dragon
I couldn't
fight.
tell by the end when they were holding hands and stuff. I really couldn't tell if it was going
I
somewhere
see.
else.
So I
or
think if they held hands, it's a different feeling than when you put your arm out and like you hook. Right? Like to me, the holding hands is a
Yeah,
more
at the end when
intimate-
they embrace like lock arms. Like,
Yes.
that's not as
But they hold
intimate
hands
as
right
holding
before that.
hands.
She's holding his hand at the table when they're telling the story, and Wong shows up.
Does she?
She's
I missed
actually
that.
holding his hand.
I
So-
thought that was like you could.
I mean, her
yeah.
hand, she's next to him, close to him, and her hand's on top of his. That to me, I was just trying to read the body language. I don't know. I mean, we're friends, but I don't go and like hold your hand when we're at a table.
That'd be super weird.
But
Yeah.
well, I mean,
I would still interpret that as kind of like we're two best buds. We sing Aladdin at karaoke together. We valet cars together. We've known each other for like 10 years. I mean, we're fine enough to invite one another over to our houses and eat breakfast before going to work, kind of deal. But even then, that is just to me kind of like we can stick along and do anything now, rather than anything rather than like the next step of a relationship, rather than like oh, we're gonna love each other now.
Well, I think they do
It's
love.
fine.
I think they do love each other, but
I
in a
never
different...
get that. But
it's fine
and
either way.
It's actually pleasant enough because I mean, Katie seems poised and seems structured, like designed to be the other half, the romantic interest of Shang-Chi, but then in the end they're both just like friends, and that I appreciate because relationships like that do occur in the real world.
Yeah, no, it's fine, and it's fine. Like I said, I'm fine with it either way. It's just, they went through an awful lot, and they seem to get closer and closer, even though they were close in the beginning. And so, to me, I just wasn't sure how to read that, especially with some of the body language. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Goes.
But I just assumed they were going to fall in love because she was driving the bus while he was fighting bad guys, and that's what speed taught me.
Yes.
As long as it doesn't go under 55, we're all right.
This is actually just a Speed remake. I don't know if you knew.
I got to tell you, don't do that. So they're on the bus getting ready to go to work, and he's attacked. And this is the first, they've given no indication of what Sean, which is his American name and the name that he made up, which I think is a hilarious.
Which is a great scene.
Yes.
When she
I just
calls him
remembered
out.
that
It's a great scene on two levels because one, it's legitimately funny when she's mocking him for choosing to go from the name Shang to Sean, and but it's also I loved it because it was like, here, we'll hold your hand, white America, and tell you how to pronounce this properly in a way that will, at least for me, it sticks in my head, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I can. It helps me remember.
Now I'm with it. Yeah,
it was a good mnemonic device.
It was. And this is a great sequence. Like, this is badass.
This is really cool.
He's fighting like four guys on a bus, Spider-Man 2 style. And it's a very well choreographed action sequence, and it's hard to
no quick cuts.
And there were a little bit, but they worked. Like, because you got to cut like around the bus.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like smash. You don't see the punches landing. It wasn't like the smash cut that we've seen.
How bummed were the filmmakers behind Shang-Chi when they watched Nobody with Bob?
I was thinking the
Yeah.
same thing. That
I know.
I actually was going to say the same thing, that we just saw this awesome bus action sequence in Nobody.
Yeah.
And then we got this. I'm like, this is a year for bus action sequences.
Bus action.
Walter Hill is going to love it because Walter Hill
always
loves
puts a bus in the
he
movie.
always puts a
in
bus
there.
in his movie.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's purposeful because in his room he had a poster.
He did have the Warriors.
For the Warriors,
yes,
which
you're
is a
totally
Walter
right.
Hill movie.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And then of course now Katie sees him. The story is that, like, when they first met, he was going to get beat up by 10 guys, and she kind of stepped in and started singing Hotel California, and nobody knew what to do, and she was like the art of misdirection. So Katie just assumes that he's not a wimp, but like not a fighter. And now here he is taking out 4 guys on a bus and one giant dude with a sword for a hand.
for his hand.
He may as well have put on black rimmed glasses and
I know,
swirled his
yeah.
hair in the front. I mean, like, he's the furthest thing you would think, and he's really this badass martial arts expert who's been trained by assassins.
So this guy who's streaming is in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah, he's the guy
right?
at the hot dog cart.
That's right.
Like,
Like, hey,
yeah.
Okay. So he went from New York to
I was
San
about
Francisco?
to say, yeah,
Hey,
quite
he's
a
vlogger.
move.
He got.
Is he? I thought he was a
country.
hot dog cart guy.
Well, he's a. Hey, it's your guy. He's a vlogger, a
Okay,
video, a
okay.
YouTuber.
But I did think that was. So I was like, that's
So
halfway
that's
across
his thing now.
He is all the way across the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he.
You used to be able to travel.
I guess that's true. That's a good point. I
That's
didn't think
the
about that. Yeah.
Kevin, my heart.
I know.
But he has this pendant. He has this like emerald pendant that his mom gave to him, and they keep going after it. And after this massive bus crash, he realizes that his pendant is gone. And he's going to go to Macau to meet his sister. And of course, as he's divulging all of this to Awkwafina and us as an audience, she's like, what are you talking? You have a sister? What's happening? And then, rather than being mean and mad about it, she's like, all right, fine. Like, she is mad about it, but she's also like, well, I'm going with you. Like, plain
And I
simple.
like that they don't use that as just a plot device for there to be a rift, which is so many movies do. Because it's like, I think a rational person would be like, no, I get it.
Right.
You're being hunted. It's like witness relocation. Like, you're like, yeah, you couldn't reveal that to people.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
And I will applaud them for their proper use of postcard sending and finding things. They actually used it like we had just seen in F9 when there's a random postcard sent and you're supposed to find
where the flag or whatever.
Yeah, this one at least had the dragon, which looked like something his mother used to draw, and it came from a specific place, and so yeah.
Right. So
Right.
I do. The only thing I do kind of wish is that we had gone to Madripoor, since we'd already been there once, and that's kind of like in the Marvel universe, like that's like the hub of criminal activity. But we don't do that. We go to Macau, which looks kind of just like Madripoor that we saw in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or Captain America and the Winter Soldier. So he goes in and he signs this document basically, and he goes upstairs and they're like, "Oh, like you're the bus guy," and they show him the video, and he's just like, "Good
bus
Lord,
boy,
bus boy,
bus
yeah."
boy.
And he's just like, "Good Lord." He's like, "All right, you're up." And of course, this is our first look at the interconnection of the MCU. Is Wong from Doctor Strange is fighting the Abomination from
that
the
was
Hulk
wild.
from the Ed Norton, and it's a completely different looking of.
I thought it was supposed to be Savage Dragon. And I was like, well, that's Image, but
this is a comic book accurate Abomination, and they call him Emil. Emil Blonsky was the character, so it's like, all right, which is they have not referenced the Ed Norton Incredible Hulk ever, right? Like William Hurt, I guess, is Thunderbolt Ross, but other than that, that's been there's no Betty Ross, like there's no reference to anything. So I was like, all right, right on, like that's pretty cool.
So, and I also like that Wong and Abomination have this grift going on, where they like
kind of like Thor and
Right.
the Taika Waititi, the Rock
Korg,
where they're like, there's just like they've got a little bit of a scam working.
But I mean, in this one, it's like, they're supposed to be having this big throwdown fight, but they've really got their moves. He's like, you're supposed to pull your punches or something. Yeah.
Right,
So
right.
that was a really funny moment and a nice way to connect all these different movies together. I did not expect that, so that was pretty fun. But then the real Shang-Chi's competitor comes, and it's
his sister, and she beats his ass, basically.
And we saw her in the flashbacks as a little girl training. Every time Shang-Chi was training and learning in new moves, the sister, who the father forbid any women from training with the 10 rings, but she was always learning. And I love it when she says, "I watched and I learned everything you did and did it better."
Yes,
it was
and
pretty cool.
And she's a badass.
That's what I really like as well. It's that cultural element, because unfortunately the favoritism, the kind of like affinity for sons over daughters, it's very real. It's very real in China and Asian cultures as well, or all cultures really, but more emphasized over in the East. It makes perfect sense, and the way that they do that, it's just one of those very nice points where we know that the story, they got it all planned out, and they kind of like nuke certain stereotypes even, and they deliver a whole lot of information, but then at the same time without trying to find the best way to do that without sacrificing any momentum, which is something that, again, I really appreciate.
Yeah, they did a really good job, like we were saying, dropping those hints, dropping them in the flashback, and we see a little bit more. We find out the sister has been training, and she's this badass now, and she ran away at 16 after Shang left, and due to the things that his father made him do, was training him to be this assassin, and so she left and started this fighting business.
Like an underground fighting ring, which I do like that Awkwafina's like, wait, you left town you started this underground fighting thing at 16? And she was like, yeah, if he wasn't going to give me the chance, I was going to make it on my own. So there's an amazing fight sequence here where Shang basically says, "Dad's coming for you," for we don't know why, and then of course here he comes, and it's a really good another fight sequence where they're fighting up along the side of a building. Awkwafina gets cornered, and of course she starts singing Hotel California, and everybody's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, it was really good, and I felt, I mean, even though you knew Awkwafina wasn't gonna bite it here, but it's still the stakes seemed high on the side of the building. It was really well done, where you were nervous, and the danger seemed real. and choreography was excellent. This is where the right hand man, what is that character's name?
I don't know.
Death Dealer.
Death Dealer.
Okay.
Death Dealer shows up again, and of course, Death Dealer has this mask that's very distinctive, and so we saw that in the flashbacks whenever Shang was training, Death Dealer was training him, and then of course he shows up, so they have a similar skill set, or they know each other's moves, I guess you would say, and so they're facing off, and the action sequence was really good with bamboo shoots on the side
Snapping
of buildings, breaking, and people holding on to them, and
That's pretty awesome.
It was a good sequence.
Climbing
up them and swinging on them.
Yeah, Jackie, a really nice callback to Jackie Chan films.
Yeah, man,
scaffoldings.
Go watch
just,
Police Story.
They should have slid down the side of
scaffoldings are just inverted arenas, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so Shang and his sister and Katie end up getting caught by the dad. They take the pendant because Shang's sister also has an emerald pendant. They get kidnapped, and this is where Shang's dad basically says, "Your mom's alive. Like we know where she is. She's behind this wall. We're gonna go get her." And there's just an idea that like Shang and his sister are like, "Man, this guy is delusional."
But like the kids are like, "She's dead." Like they know she's dead,
and the dad refuses to let that go. Yeah.
But I also thought this was really interesting too, because they create a complex villain here.
He's very much a complex villain,
where you don't necessarily part of you is like, I wonder. Part of you is like, his motivations. I wonder if there is a foundation. Is there a higher, villain, someone trying to manipulate them and actually. Maybe he's right. Maybe they did kidnap them. You know what I mean? Like there's something about his motivations where he's motivated by love and by his tragic loss.
And he put that side of him away for a long time.
Yeah,
right?
so
like he gave all that up.
Yeah, you feel like it's like he kind of paid his due and he gave up that life and started this family, and it was taken away from him by some means, and you want it to be true. You want him to be vindicated, but then also he is back to his old evil ways, right? So you're like, oh no, I want him to be good, and I really like him, and
you kind of get that later. You get a little bit of redemption at the end, a little bit,
and that's cool as well because you feel like his motivations are valid. That's one thing, but then also the other thing is that it seems. Well, of course, this is more a testament to Tony Leung's performance more than anything. He says threatening things, but then afterward he would smile, and his eyes are very kind. So you feel like that's a whole bunch of sinister air about him, but then it's all bottled up inside this very polished, gentlemanly, and even fatherly appearance. And,
it's charisma.
And because it seems like his motivations are valid, you feel this sensation like he has to do this. He has to, go to that place. He has to open the gates of spilling out all the evil, just so that he could, do this one last evil thing, and then he'll stop.
But I think what I like about him is you understand why he's doing it. Like, he's wrong. Like, he's being tricked into thinking that she's still alive and trapped behind the gate. But that like he's willing to do all this horrible stuff because that's his skill set, right? Like, but that ultimately, if he was right and these people were gonna stop him from going and saving this innocent woman in prison back there, like you'd be like, yeah, burn the village to the ground. That's bullshit,
right? No, go get it.
Yeah, and so it's like, but it's because he's wrong, and those are always my favorite villains. Where
it's the Magneto thing, right?
Yeah, he's not just twirling his mustache. It's like, but I get where he's coming from. He's not right, but I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He's the hero of his film.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So I like that he's not just the evil villain. He has motivations that are understandable. But then also when you think he's coming back around, like he has a really nice moment. They're eating dinner, the four of them. Shang, the sister, Aquafina, they're all eating dinner. And he's like, yeah, let me show you this. And he goes to his workshop and I've been studying all this stuff, whatever. And then he's like, we're going to go get her. Your mom's alive.
And they're both just like,
what? They're like, what will you do if they won't? Oh, well, then we'll kill them all.
Yeah, we'll to the ground.
So like you think he seems nice and things are going to be good, and he's just trying to get his wife back, but then he's like, yeah, I'm going to murder everyone that stands in my
And
way.
I love the line reading on that, though, right?
It's
Like,
perfect.
because
It's
it's
perfect.
not like a lesser actor would have made it this sinister
I'm
evil.
going
Like,
to kill
I'm
them.
revealing my true evil nature, and he's just like so matter of fact,
Yeah.
and he's like, well, but they're an obstacle. If they're not going to help us save her, then they're the enemy,
Right.
And so now we're at
We're
war,
gonna kill them
and
all.
that's what you do,
Right.
And I just like I
Well,
said,
he's a great actor. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the thing is he's got that thing that we talk about, that it factor,
Yes.
right? Like we talk about with The Rock or Lily James or whatever, where he just has that thing. He is so good in just his look without saying a word. You know,
Exactly.
He's fantastic in this movie.
his body language. Yeah, he's a phenomenal actor, and so that's really cool that he's getting a chance to shine on
this level,
in this mainstream
Yes.
movie. You know, and try his hand at a big American film like this, because I think he is a great actor, and I'm hoping we see him in a lot more stuff.
Yeah. So he takes the Mandarin takes the two like emerald eyes and puts them onto a dragon statue, and of course it shows. And these are like when I say this is on the level of Black Panther, is Ryan Coogler had to build Wakanda from the ground up. Like there was no. You couldn't take like, oh, this is like New York, right? Like
Right.
you had to build this from the ground up. And I think this is the same way. Like this movie does the same thing where they have to build the village, they have to build everything from the ground up. And I think using the use of water in this scene is extraordinary. Like we
Right.
talk about bad CG, and this doesn't have
This
any.
movie has really good
The
CG.
dragons and the soul suckers are all like the little soul suckers are a little wonky. The big soul sucker is a little wonky, but the dragon, there's texture to his or her face.
Yeah.
Like there's texture to that, and I think it was really well done. But also, there's not a lot of CG in this movie until the very end. Everything
Yeah.
is, and that's
Right.
like, we've talked about it a billion times, where sometimes these movies get to the very end and they're like, let's a giant CG fest, and it, like this unfortunately does that a little bit.
Yeah, they kind of lose me. I really wish they did more of the intimate, the wuxia stuff that we talked
Yeah,
about
I agree.
with just the elements and water and
I think
air.
I think him seeing the dragon in the water and then like giving him that Rocky moment, right, would have been sufficient.
Yeah.
But they've added
Right.
these giant.
the big creatures
Yeah.
battling thing. I just,
exactly.
I
exactly.
I wish it
I
was
would-
more intimate.
This is so
Yeah.
Shang-Chi, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Moon Knight, like Spider-Man. All of those characters are like street level characters, and when he works kind of in every aspect, but when you take him out of that street level aspect, like it kind of loses a little bit because he is so grounded in the real world for the most part. Granted, we've got the fantastical elements of the village and things like that, but
When
he's
I liked
always
the
been on this,
cultural
you know.
elements, I liked
Yeah,
that
yeah,
they
yeah.
depicted a lot of these mythical creatures. Like you have the dragon, the like lion dragon.
I think those are cool, like in the village,
Right, like
Yeah.
you get a lot of those dragon creatures and the flying, the weird. These are all real.
Mm-hmm.
Nine-tailed fox.
Even the nine-tailed foxes in there. Yeah, so you get a lot of the things from Eastern culture that they put in here and those fantastical elements. So I obviously don't mind that they're in there, and I think they're really cool to look at and all that. But when the climax comes down to this big CGI fest, it's like I'd rather have a more of a fist fight or a one-on-one
Right.
kind of a
And-
thing. And
yeah, I think the last 20 minutes of this movie really starts to drag with
Yeah.
All
with
the
big
CG
battle
and stuff like
yeah.
that.
I don't know
I
why
agree.
they feel beholden. Like we're making a big MC. I mean, this is not a Shang-Chi problem. This is a Marvel superhero
Totally.
problem.
Exactly.
To where
Exactly.
coming down to the big battle,
I mean,
it's like ugh.
it's necessary in Endgame, right? Like it's necessary in Infinity
Oh,
War.
absolutely.
But
They
it's
earned
not.
it there.
But it's
Not necessarily
Not here.
in every
Yeah.
movie that they do.
right.
Yeah.
Did
because-
they have it in Captain America? I guess they didn't. Like those are all pretty.
It's been so
those are,
not in
like,
Civil War. That's why I love that
Civil
movie.
War,
Civil
Winter
War,
Soldier,
Doctor Strange.
and the first Avenger. Like that's all based on on the battlefield for the most part. But yeah, like now they've gotten into it's the DC problem, right? Like that's every time they get to the end of a movie, it's just like giant CG battle. Go,
And this is where the films that is exactly where the film falls short for me, because it's all about the big theme here of the film is about wholeness and kind of like reflections pretty much. So, if we start out with such a beautiful dance between, father and mother, husband and wife, why couldn't we just have our climax just strictly about, father and son, future and past?
Yes, exactly. That
and you
should
get
have
that,
been.
and you get that for a cup of coffee, right? Like you get it for a
Yeah.
little bit, and then
I had really wished that, it would just, we would never get to know what's behind the door.
yes,
Like,
You
yeah,
didn't need to.
just
yeah.
strictly father and son duking it out for each other with a result that, we all know what's coming, but then, it would be so much more emotional in that
Yes.
sense. And it would, like really honor all the seeds, all the beats that, that came before. And, in a way, I kind of wish like it had been like the big final fight that has been, that the film has been hyping up to be like M. Night Shyamalan's Glass. That film, Glass, it keeps teasing about, how there's kind of like a big skyscraper that
Right.
recently opened in Philadelphia. So, we thought that, all three of our characters will have this big fight there right downtown. But then, it did not happen. All of that just happened in the, psychiatric hospital's courtyard. And, I really appreciate that, even though some people don't. Even though people said that, Shyamalan deprived us of a climax. I would say, no, you don't. This is
Yeah.
perfect as it is. It helps makes the universe true. It helps makes this universe true in the sense that, it's legitimate, but then true in the sense that, it respects what came before.
I don't think it worked in Glass, but I think it would have worked here. And I think the difference for me anyway is that in Glass when they did it, it felt like we
ran
obviously
out of money.
we don't have the money to do this. Where when Marvel makes that, I feel like that's a legitimate choice that they made because
Right.
Marvel obviously has the money to do
Anything?
that if they want.
Right.
And so in the case of Glass, it just felt to me like, whoops,
yeah.
we didn't budget properly.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah.
I think here they were just scared that this is a big Marvel movie and they're putting a lot of money into it, and it's the first ever with this majority
I
Asian
think
cast,
all
and-
of it, right?
and
With the exception of Razor Fist, everybody.
yeah, definitely most of it. And I think they said, well, we don't want this to fail because people said there wasn't enough action, or general audiences were disappointed without some big battle or something. I feel like they just didn't feel like they could get away with not doing the
It's
big
the
battle in
safe
this.
choice to make.
It is.
And it's
Exactly.
always gonna be the safe choice
Exactly.
to
Right.
make. Yeah.
Right.
That's so I think that it would have been better without it, but I can see why they put it in there.
Right.
Now, aside from the big monsters dueling, the showdown with the 10 rings and the ant,
Yeah. Michelle Yeoh.
who we didn't even talk about, Michelle Yeoh, who is phenomenal in this movie. She's
that's another one of those castings where it's just like, damn, I didn't even know she's in this movie. And she's so good
yeah.
that it doesn't matter what her role is, like she's going to destroy it and own
In a good way.
in a wonderful way, right? Like she has moments with the sister where she's like, go, like train, dude, show him what you've got. She changes Shang-Chi's fighting style because he knows
that moment I loved. So we get it's very similar to the mother and father, which obviously that one is more romantic centered, but the fight where it's more like a dance. So we see the Shang.
I know when she's trained him to like you'll beat your father the way your mother did. I'm like, I don't think just I certainly hope not.
Harnessing the power of the great protector.
Yeah.
So I like it though that so she changes his fighting style. So he fights like his father and how he was trained, and the aunt fights like the mother. And so she teaches him to fight that way, and she takes his clenched fist and she opens it, and
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful moment.
his dad taught him to be a hammer and she taught him how to be a knife.
Yep, and
Exactly.
it's
There
this
we go.
beautiful
Perfect.
transition of her opening him up to this different style and letting him, connect with the elements around him,
The
right?
force.
Because she does the water, like they do the air bending,
Yeah.
the water elements and things like that. And so I really like how that played out. And then you get the mirrored fight at the end with the father and son. So we've seen the father and mother, we've seen the son and the aunt, which is essentially the mother,
Right.
the same kind of training. And then we see him transition and take the place of the mother and fight mirrored from that beginning battle, aside from the end for Tom, just to clarify, aside from the way that battle ends. But we get to see that, and he comes full circle and undoes his training and go to the other side, like to the light side from the dark side. And it's just this really beautiful imagery and the yin and yang of it all and everything balanced out. And I think that and so the ant training scene, and then also the ant on the ground with the village fighting the 10 rings. There's some really great martial arts stuff there.
Great stuff.
And that, so I kind of wish like that went, kind of wrapped it up.
Like I said, I'm okay with the dragon in the water, right? To give like that rocky moment to bring him back, and then to have him be this ass kicker that we know that he is. Because in the MCU, the rumor and the theory is that Shang-Chi is the greatest fighter in the MCU and in Marvel, in the comics, right? Like he's taken out Captain America, he's taken out Iron Fist. I mean, anybody who can fight Shang-Chi. There's a whole in Ultimate Spider-Man. There's a comic called Ultimate Team Up where young Peter Parker, who can't fight, and he's just like doing whatever he doesn't know what he's doing. He goes to Shang-Chi and was like, hey, can you teach me some stuff? And the guy was like, yeah, because he's the best fighter that exists in this world. So being able to not really see that at the very end, I was like, God dang it. Like, I don't need to see the Soul Sucker and Giant Dragon. That's not the fight I want to see.
Yes.
Right.
So let's talk about let's talk about him getting the rings and then riding the dragon to victory.
Basically the Shang and his dad get into this massive fight. There's this barrier that the rings are breaking through, and behind this barrier are these soul suckers. And if these things get out, they're going to take over the world. And there's a bunch of little ones, and there's one big one. So the Mandarin is smashing this wall with the rings, and unfortunately it cracks, and all of these little ones start coming out. And then the big one comes out, and it's a mess. Like, he's just this massive beast. He gets a hold of the dad, and the dad realizes that I have made a mistake. I have screwed up. And he kind of lets the rings go. And we should say that, like, when the Mandarin is using the rings, they're like this blue electrical tint the entire time.
That also seems like his fight, somehow the 10 ring army is harnessing that power too.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
Yes.
That
They use like stun guns and like electrical.
I don't know, because the power looks like the same bluish purplish energy of the rings. I think somehow they're harnessing the power of the rings.
That could be.
To his army. I don't know how, but it's kind of neat the way that they use that.
So when the Mandarin realizes that he's lost, he lets the rings go, and Shang-Chi takes the rings, and now they've turned into like a golden yellow, and he is now in charge of the 10 rings. And he rides on the back of this dragon, and Awkwafina finds her purpose where she can actually, she's the Katniss Everdeen of this group, where she can fire a single arrow from 300,000 yards away and hits.
She was training
sort of for a day. Okay.
Yeah. Well, she found her thing.
She found her thing.
They say in the movie, I mean, they build it up as everyone's got their thing, and so like, she maybe have all these things she could do, but she never found her real purpose. And it's like, once she found archery, that just clicked.
I think you're missing the obvious reasons why she's so good.
Why?
There was a montage.
There was a montage.
There was
You're
a
right.
montage, guys. Come on.
Sorry. Speaking
I never
of Rocky,
doubted it.
Yeah, right.
That's how we remember at the beginning of the podcast, we were really bad.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
And then we did a podcast montage.
Yes.
And then we got we're
600
this might
episodes
not
later.
be the best thing to point to.
The one thing we should reference is that while they're trapped by the Mandarin, we see Ben Kingsley in this movie from Iron Man 3 shows up, and we find out that he had been captured by the Mandarin. The Mandarin was going to kill Ben Kingsley's character from Iron Man 3 until he started reciting Macbeth, and they're like, you could stick around.
I realized watching this, I have no idea what Ben Kingsley's real voice sounds like. Like, I know he's British, but like, I don't know. Obviously,
this is it, isn't it?
I don't. I mean, this is a British accent, but it sounds very Liverpudlian. He sounded like Ringo Starr to me.
I can see that.
Well, he's putting on this actor like theatre,
right?
actor.
So even though it's British, it could be
he really is like playing like he's in the Royal Theatre. He's like really playing it up. But it is hilarious that they're basically like, so you're his jester.
He's like,
so
sure.
they kept him alive to entertain them through.
And he was like, fine. But I do think it's funny that like that was one of the biggest points of Iron Man 3 that people are like, oh, this movie's terrible. I can't believe they did this.
It's not the real Mandarin.
And
he's
then
an actor.
they bring it back in this one. I was like, man, that is next level producing and filmmaking to bring this character that nobody liked back, and then you make him like. I enjoyed that character, right?
Yeah.
He was
Oh,
great.
we all love a good
Yeah.
comeback
Yeah.
story.
And he was great. So he's back in
Yeah.
this. But yeah, so
he's their Deus Ex Machina. I
He's
mean,
a- yeah,
he
he
helps
gets
them
them-
navigate the maze, and he's got a mythical creature that just happens
Right.
to can
Know
talk
how to get him there.
And It's
Exactly,
like I
exactly.
mean, it's very Deus Ex Machina. But anyway, it's a nice
it's a nice callback to
moment.
Iron Man 3,
Yeah.
right? Which was
right.
however long ago that
Right.
was. Did we do an episode on that?
We
Probably.
did.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we've never missed a Marvel movie.
Yeah, we did. We didn't do Iron Man. We didn't do anything up until
we weren't
Since we
recording.
started this
Well,
podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, yes, we also didn't review Gone with the Wind. Like that's
It came close during the pandemic.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were going to do. Yeah, so
So dragon fight.
the dragon fight, Katie shoots an arrow through the neck of the soul sucker, and then Shang uses the 10 rings to basically which was
explode the
which was
dragon.
awesome. Like that's the best part of the whole thing.
Throws
is,
them all in the dragon. They're like moving around, and then boom, just bursts
then,
the
yes,
thing, and
and
blood chunks go everywhere.
It was great. Yeah.
Also, this movie, the language in this movie,
There's a lot of
two S bombs.
yeah,
holy cow,
and some bullshit. So,
Well, that's still an S bomb.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
But that's all coming from I guess it's coming from both of them, from Aquafina and is it Simu? Am I saying that right?
Simu
Yeah,
Liu?
you got it
Simu
right.
Liu?
Simu
Okay.
Liu.
Which
Who
I
is
thought,
great. I never watched Kim's Convenience, but he's
is that on Netflix?
Yes.
You should correct that.
Oh, I do. I want to watch it, but I mean, I heard he's really good in that.
Okay,
and,
he's good. He's really good in this. I
Yeah.
think he's very.
He's got-
he's a badass action hero in this. But
He's
he's
an
also
instant
he's got an Ernst to him
Yeah.
in the very beginning, and then when he kind of sheds that and becomes the master of kung fu, it's a different character.
But he
still has that.
He has that quality though, where much like The Rock, or maybe how The Rock used to be. I know he's pretty cocky now in most of his movies, but he's got this tough guy where he pulls off the ass kicking, martial artist type of thing. He's tough guy, but then also when he's joking around and with Aquafina, he's so likable and has that kind of a quality.
exactly,
Right? So he's
exactly.
tough, but he's not tough in that Vin Diesel type.
He's got the everyman.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
everyman, but also really skilled, and you don't want to mess with him. But you're also like, you could buddy. Joke
I
around
look
with him.
forward to. We talked about how they're going to need to revamp the Avengers shortly, and
Yeah.
I like the idea of him playing against Anthony Mackie and Paul Rudd and
Yeah,
those.
he'd fit
Tom
right in
Holland.
there.
He's
Joking
going to
around
fit
with,
right
yeah.
in. Yeah.
So
So they win, and the beast is destroyed. And there's a nice little scene earlier in the movie where Katie and Shang are telling their friends about all of this, their life, and the friend is kind of giving them the guff about it. So
they have a
flash-
dull, really uninteresting life.
Yeah.
They park cars, and that's all they're doing with their potential. Then it drinks the next time after this battle. They're telling
Right.
the story.
And they're both like, come on. Like, I know you're making fun of me. Like, the friend
Yeah.
is like, I know you're teasing me. And then behind them,
the portal
the
opens
portal
up.
opens, and here comes Wong, which I think is great.
He's like, Shang-Chi?
He's like,
I like
yeah.
how he goes, Shang-Chi, and he's looking around the bar, and then he slowly raises his hand like,
He's like, do you still have those rings? And he was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
He's like, let's go.
Yeah.
So
I like how the whole bar, they show a wide shot, and they're all just staring like, what is
right,
happening?
right. So then we get this is our next MCU reference. They're in a meeting, and it's Wong, and then on the communicator is Bruce Banner with Mark Ruffalo,
Bruce Banner. now.
human Bruce Banner, whose arm is still in a sling,
Yeah.
so he's still messed up from
So it's
from
permanent,
Endgame.
it seems like.
Maybe,
from-
yeah.
Boy, he looked rough.
He did look.
He looked
rough.
old,
He
didn't
looked
he?
real old.
But I think maybe that is a little bit of the after the Endgame thing. I mean, he snapped the gauntlet like that.
I could see
screwed
where
him
they
up.
were like, yeah, that
Mhm.
makes sense. And then we see Carol Danvers, Brie Larson has an appearance in this as well, and they're breaking down the rings, and everybody's like, I've never seen these before, and they kind of use like
It's not Chitauri. It's not any kind of alien. It's not Wakanda.
we've never seen anything like
yeah.
it, and they expand it like they're looking at them under a microscope, and they expand one of the rings, and there's almost like a heartbeat that they say is sending a signal, and I do like where they're like, to what? And they're like, oh, couldn't tell you.
All right.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Well, they said that they found this whenever he triggered them, when he got the rings, it sent out some kind of a signal to them.
which, I mean, there's a reason, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't. The Marvel movies at this point don't say things.
No, we'll
unless
find
they-
out.
Yeah, we'll
and
find
then
out.
Captain Marvel has to scoot, so I guess maybe we'll find out what she's doing in the Marvels.
the Marvels, yeah. Which I mean, Nia DaCosta, coming off of Candyman, and now she's like, I think she's got 3 big movies to her credit, right?
Mm-hmm.
2, and then the Marvels. So that she's got 2 movies, including Candyman, and now Marvel's.
Well, not big movies. I mean, I would say
Candyman.
that's one.
Okay, so then but this
You know what I'm
we
saying?
talked
Like-
about Moneyball in it, right?
Yeah.
And they find her,
They did, right.
and this is they're doing it again, where instead of getting
They've gone from finding like
there it is, yeah,
directors who are maybe past their prime or in a fallow period or the zenith of their career,
But have done great things.
but have done great things in the work in the past. They've gone instead of we'll find young talent,
yeah,
and
we'll give
and
them
let
a shot.
them do it.
So they get her from Little Woods to Candyman to
yeah.
Marvel, right?
Right, and
so
then
like
Ryan
the
Coogler-
jump
Ryan
is
Coogler's the same
Ryan
way.
Coogler, Fruitvale Station.
James Gunn to a degree, to another degree. Like James Gunn didn't have a
Yeah.
massive hit.
Yeah, I mean Guardians definitely was
Yeah, put
a
him on
pretty
the
big
map.
jump. So, but that's what you're right. That's what Marvel does. So
Yeah, he never had anything bigger than an art house hit.
Sliver, but that didn't do anything.
Slither.
yeah, you're right. I mean
Did I say
Guardians.
Sliver?
Yeah.
That's the Sharon Stone
Yeah.
movie.
Right,
Yeah,
which shows you that it was never going to hit.
Right.
Right, it's a
Directing.
horror movie, and you got the
Yeah, I got
name
the title
wrong.
wrong.
Directing wise, certainly.
Yeah. And so we get the credits, and then the post-credit is we find out that Shang's sister is taking over the 10 Rings and updating the entire thing.
And she was supposed to be dismantling them.
Yeah,
They
well-
say she's back home dismantling them, and she's
Yep.
actually taken over the 10 Rings and is training a female army, because that was a big deal. Is like they wouldn't train women, and so now
She's got a
this
whole female army.
and then it says 10 Rings will return. So we don't know
Here's what I
she's
thought was
going to
happen for real is we've been getting Julia Louis-Dreyfus popping up in all this stuff, and I was like, oh, we'll get her. She's the new Nick Fury. She's putting together her Dark Avengers.
Right.
She's going to go get the sister.
That's probably why they showed us Abomination.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's true.
I
That's a
mean,
good point.
They probably brought him back not just randomly
To be like
but
their
we're
Hulk.
probably going to see him again. Yeah,
That'd be all right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then that's where we wrap up. The 10 Rings will return. Man, this is so good. Like
It's
this,
good.
I think we talked about Black Widow being, like not top tier, like the B squad
Yeah.
of the Marvel movies. I really think this is top tier. I think this is up there with Black Panther and Guardians of the Galaxy, and Winter Soldier. I think this was is better than Black Widow.
It's better than Black Widow.
So I have to put it like in the upper tier
Yeah.
of the Marvel
I like
stuff.
Black Widow.
I did
but
too. I thought it was
do-
really good.
I do think this is better than Black Widow, but Black Panther's on another level. I think,
What I mean by
you know,
that is
it's-
like in the world building and like
Sure.
having to establish this character
Yeah.
that nobody knows
Right.
anything
it's
about.
really good. I love the influences on it. I love again the wuxia stuff and the artistry behind the fights. How it wasn't just people slamming heads into brick walls and stuff.
Right.
Crumbling stuff. It was so elegant and well done and well filmed and choreographed. I wish they did more of that, and I hope in the future they're going to go like keep bringing that style.
let him
back.
be on the let him be that street level
Yeah.
like character. That's where this character
Yeah.
would be
Yeah,
perfect.
The thing about Black Widow is that it could have been this good continuation or maybe jumping off point, but then we wanted it, we demanded it, but then it's just everything came together too late, so that by the time that it came out, we were all kind of like watching it in frustration, like, oh, finally, let's see what's this all about.
I agree.
Rather
I mean,
than-
she's dead.
Yeah.
We're not invested in
rather
Natasha
than approaching-
anymore. It didn't
Yes.
matter.
Yeah, she's
So
gone.
That's the
Right.
point. The problem is we should have gotten the Black Widow origin after
Yeah.
we saw Black Widow, or recently, not after. So yeah, I agree. But yeah, this is good.
Yeah, I dug it. I thought the final battle went on a little too long.
Yeah.
There are a lot of comparisons I think you could make to Black Panther. That
There's
felt
a
like
lot.
the Secret Village.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean. But overall, I enjoyed the ride.
Yeah,
And-
so we'll get
yeah.
what, Eternals and Spider-Man? Or
Yeah, supposedly.
it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Hopefully.
So I guess that's it for this one. Let's go around the table and everyone can say where to find them.
This is Joe. You can follow me on the Twitter at JoeyButts, BUTTS21.
This is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at Kevin R. Brackett.
And where can everybody find you?
Twitter NLE318 or on Facebook Nguyen.le.334. Yes, it's really sad. I do memorize my my handle on Facebook. So what the heck?
Hey, whatever works. I've committed stupider stuff to my brain than that, so you'll be fine. So, and you can find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. Find the show online at facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group, and of course, check out our Patreon. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, Cole drains Hanzo's blood.
Get ready for a spoiler. say it twice, cause we already warned you.